Public hearings on the Private Security Industry Regulation Amendment Bill will commence in Parliament today. Briefing Parliament yesterday, Police Minister Natim Tetra said the private security industry more than doubles that of the entire statutory armed force, which poses a security risk to the country. The bill is aimed at regulating the private security industry. For more on this now, we're joined on the line by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Annelies van Wyk. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning.
The minister says the private security industry more than doubles that of the entire armed force, statutory armed force. Does this worry the minister, do you think?
No, I think the point is that we need to regulate we need to regulate the industry a bit better. That is what needs to happen. The minister's comments around the industry and the size of the industry is to put it in perspective so that we can have a better understanding of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And of course he says that that poses a security risk to the country. How so?
Well, I think the point is that one does not know necessarily what the extent of the firearms in the possession of the industry is, and that obviously poses a threat. Also, one is not always knowledgeable about what it is that they are busy doing. What are they keeping themselves busy with? That obviously is also an issue that needs to be addressed.
And Minister Mteto says that the private security is increasingly performing functions which used to be performed by used to be the sole preserve of the police. But this helps really fight crime, and it eases the pressure on the police, doesn't it?
I think the one thing that we must understand clearly from this bill is that it does not intend in any way whatsoever to do away with private security companies. We recognize the need for private security companies and the fact that, private security companies are driven by a supply and demand question. So the bill does not in any way try and do away with private security companies. It's just trying to regulate the private security companies better than we are currently regulating them. It is also making the task of the private security industry regulating authority easier. So what we're doing is we're looking at the act that is there, and we are trying to improve that act in order to make sure that the regulation of the private security industry can be more effective. One of the problems currently is the fact that the private security companies, even if the regulating authority fines them, they would not pay those fines. So we need to correct the loopholes, if I can call it that, within the bill, within the act, so that we can have a more effective regulating authority for the private security industry.
Now, is this bill going to also regulate the salaries of the security guards? I mean, they are being paid appalling salaries, and they work long hours, 12-hour shifts a day.
Yeah, the bill will not regulate the salaries. I think we must be clear about that as well. Although part of the private security industry regulating authorities' duties are to make sure that security officers, security guards are actually paid what they are supposed to be paying. I think one needs to acknowledge the fact that the issue of salaries is discussed at a different level. It's discussed at the labor level. So it's not part of regulating that we would put in this act. But it is one of the responsibilities of the private security industry authority is to actually look at the compliance of companies in terms of the wages also of private security officers. It is a concern. It is a serious concern. And it is something that we feel that CIRA has not paid enough attention to either.
Of course, what are you going to do in the meantime to ensure that CIRA takes care of the stock of firearms that are in the hands of the private security companies? Because you're saying right now it's difficult to regulate that at the moment.
It's a two-way street. On the one hand, it's not CIRA that issue the licenses for firearms. Obviously, it's SAPs that issue those licenses. So what we need to see is a better communication, and that's what we're trying to achieve in the bill, in the amendment bill. To see better communication between CIRA and SAPs in terms of the licensing of private security companies. First of all, CIRA is the starting point. CIRA would issue a license to a company, and that license may or may not include that they can do business around sort of businesses that would include the use of firearms. So they need to inform SAPS and the Central Firearm Register that we have given a trade license to this company, and the license that we've given them will allow them also, I'm saying license is actually accredited, and will also allow them to do work that will require firearms.
Okay.
SAPS, the company will then apply to SAPS for firearm licenses. SAPS will issue those licenses if they find it in order, but then they need to communicate back to CIRA. And then once CIRA deregister the company, and I think that's where the challenge currently is. Once CIRA, for whatever reason, non-compliance, not paying levies, whatever the case may be, deregister a company, they should then inform SAPS again, so that SAPS can then remove those firearms.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it at that with you, Ms. Annelies van Wyk. She's the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police. Let's talk now to Jenny Reid. She's the president of the Security Association of South Africa, SASA. Jenny, what do you make of the statement by the minister and, of course, reaction by Annelies van Wyk?
You know, I think it's encouraging that they want to do something to try and improve the situation. But the problem is that they don't engage in discussion with the industry. And it's very interesting to hear how they want to resolve the issue with the firearms, how they want to get CIRA to be more proactive. As an industry, we send through a lot of complaints to CIRA about the fly-by-night companies, and I think that's the bigger risk, not the big foreign-owned security companies that they seem to be concerned about. We need to be looking at the many fly-by-night and non-compliant security companies, and if they could look at regulating and properly dealing with those situations, they'd have a lot less to worry about. Because, yes, those are the guys running around with unregistered firearms, paying their staff badly, not treating correctly, and those are the ones we get the complaints about. And those are the ones nobody's doing anything about.
Jenny, the bill demands 49% ownership by South Africans, a separate firearms regulator, and a vetting process for personnel. Are you in agreement with this? Because surely the foreign ownership or foreign-owned companies do pose a security risk in the country.
I don't understand why. You know, they've been here and they operate all over the world, the foreign companies that they're looking at. They're professional organizations. I really cannot understand why they're having a concern about that. I really don't.
But in terms of vetting and a separate firearms regulator?
Yes, no, that I agree with completely. The vetting, the problem today is to become a registered security officer, you screened and vetted right at the beginning of registration with CIRA. You never, ever checked again in terms of the legal process. So you can have a security officer that's convicted 10 times over guarding your property.
That's scary. We're going to have to leave it at that. Jenny Reid, President of the Security Association of South Africa, thank you very much for that. It's 8 o'clock right now, and of course it's time.